Well, good morning. Welcome to a sunny day. Cooking with Gary, direct from downtown Gary's Kitchen. Hope you're having a great day, making the most of it, um, protecting yourself, quarantining yourself, and still cooking. I hope you're cooking. So I liked my eggs Benedict so much I made it again recently. It's kind of fun how sometimes recipes come back up again and you can make them over and over again. So today's dish is called chicken provincial. Now there's a French pronunciation of that, but I did the American pronunciation of chicken provincial. This is a interesting dish in that it's French and it's from the peasants of France who were looking for an inexpensive meal that was hearty, that would keep them warm during the winters. So chicken provincial is not one of those high-end dishes that you might see in French cooking. Very simple. It's basically chicken thighs with a tomato base, with onions, mushrooms, plenty of good herbs, a little bit of zest, and then you finish it with black olives, and you finish it with a lemon zest. So kind of a relatively simple dish. My youngest daughter, got this for Christmas, got me this cookbook, and it's called Make Ahead. And this was one of the recipes I saw in it. And I said, hey, let's go ahead and make chicken provincial. It sounded good. It sounded like some dish that I would like. Basically, you can cook it anywhere from 2 to 4 hours. It simmers very nicely, slow heat on top of the oven, and then you finish it by slow cooking it for just over 2 hours. You serve it with white rice or brown rice if you like a vegetable, but it's a couple of chicken thighs with a nice tomato-based sauce over it. Let's do a couple of things here. I want to start off with the tool of the month. This is something I just recently got. It's called the Food Huggers. All right, you're gonna say, what is a food hugger? Well, that's this month's tool. That's this tool that is basically silicone, and you cut the lemon and you use this as to cover the lemon up. So say you only need a half a lemon, like today we're going to use a half a lemon zest. I'll cut this lemon and I'll put it in this container, and it'll keep the fruit, or it'll keep the vegetable, like an onion is oftentimes used for it. You don't always use a whole onion. You don't always use a whole lemon. This hugger, silicone, goes easily in the dishwasher. What I like about it is I can cover up my fruit or produce and put it in the fridge and use it for another day. And it keeps it real nice, keeps it fresh longer. Silicone doesn't react to the acids that are oftentimes present with citrus. So that is today's Cooking with Gary monthly tool called Food Huggers. All right. I got a set of those, and we're starting to use them. So they're part of the tools in the kitchen. So where does this dish end up to cook? It's an important choice when you're in the kitchen making this dish. What dish, bowl, pan do you use to cook this? Well, chicken provincial is made in a Dutch oven. So here's a little bit of trivia, just in case you get on Jeopardy soon, or you're sitting at home playing, a guessing game. You can find out that a Dutch oven is known to be a Dutch oven because the Dutch discovered it as a vessel to cook a lot of the dishes that they like to cook. It's back from the 17th century. So remember that in case you're on Jeopardy. or you need trivia for some show. So a Dutch oven, 17th century, from the Netherlands. Why is the Dutch oven important in this recipe? Well, you're browning first your chicken thighs, and after you brown those chicken thighs with the bone in, you're basically braising them or browning them in the Dutch oven pot. Now, what's nice about a Dutch oven is it easily goes on the stove to brown stuff, put the lid on it, and slowly finish it in the oven with the tomato sauce and chicken broth and white wine and parsley. So those onions and mushrooms and all the other fine ingredients that make up this dish slowly cook in the oven. So it easily goes from the top of the stove on the fire to within the oven at 300 degrees. So it really works out nicely. So your Dutch oven browns and you get your chicken ready. After you do that, you set it aside. And I've already cooked and braised my brown chicken thighs. Little note from Kroger. I ordered 2 sets of chicken thighs yesterday on my click list. They were on my receipt, but to do this recipe, I needed 8 of them, and none of the 8 showed up in my grocery bag, even though I paid for them. So a little bit of a scramble. I had some other chicken thighs, not as many as I needed, but today's dish was pulled out of the freezer, and thanks be to God, I had some extra. So chicken thighs, bone or bone in, however you like that. Very simple. It's an inexpensive cut. Kroger has them this week if they put them in your bag at 99 cents a pound. So it's a nice dish. So after you brown the chicken thighs, what you want to do is you want to take it and start part of the vegetables that will incorporate into this dish. Take the chicken thighs out, pour out some of the oil or fat that might have occurred when you're cooking the chicken thighs for 10 minutes. They'll brown up real nice, set them aside on a plate, and then you want to start the onions and sliced mushrooms to put in. So I basically took a mushroom, split it up. You can get whole mushrooms or you can get sliced mushrooms. And I also took a whole red onion, sliced that up and cut it in, and then I put it in this pot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what's a Dutch oven, put it in the pot, cook it on the oven for 10 minutes, and we'll start talking about some of the other stuff that goes in here. So a Dutch oven is this. It's really an iron cast steel pan covered in enamel. It's really neat. There you can see after the brown chicken, now I've taken those out. I put in the sliced mushrooms and the sliced onions. So I'm going to turn around. You're going to get my back, but I'm going to put on the oven the onions and the mushrooms to cook the saute. What's also nice about this dish is the Dutch oven comes with a real nice heavy lid that is also oven safe. So the Dutch oven is oven safe, and so is the lid. Incorporates and keeps everything in, but always make sure that if it is oven safe, that your top here is 500 degrees or less, that it can take that temperature in the oven. If the one Dutch oven you have isn't, there are parts you can make available, because there are some Dutch oven recipes that are at 500 degrees. You don't want to put a lid on and watch it melt. So that's the Dutch oven lid. Very nice. Here is my finished chicken thighs, which I cooked a little earlier. Used the fat in there to cook the mushrooms and the onions. So what's nice about that is those are already braised. A braising before you use the vegetables and incorporate everything adds another layer of taste. So it's kind of like browning a meat. and then incorporating it in a dish. It always has that wonderful taste of what's added by braising, and also creates some great brown bits. By brown bits, those are little bits of protein that are stuck to the bottom of the pot. You scrape up or put a little wine in, and they'll incorporate into the dish and adds another layer of flavor to it. So while the mushrooms and onions are cooking, what you're trying to do there is take the moisture out of the mushroom. Believe it or not, a mushroom has a lot of wetness, and that's why you don't clean a mushroom in the faucet. You don't ever put it in the water and cook it, because it'll even absorb, it's like a sponge, it'll even absorb more water, and then it won't brown. So when you're cleaning your mushrooms, you get them home from the grocery store, you want to take them and brush them off with a brand new toothbrush. There's also, I think I've even shown it as one of my cooking tools. It's a nice little brush. I use it to take the silk out of my corn during the summer, and I use it to brush the mushrooms clean with dry. You can also use a paper towel and just clean off the mushroom. Just make sure that you're not incorporating any of the soil that's in a mushroom into your dish. Just clean it up, cut it up, and then you're all set. So slice up the onion, slice up the mushroom, put them in uncovered, so you want the moisture to release. So don't put the lid on the Dutch oven quite yet. And you'll cook those mushrooms about 10 minutes until they start browning. A little bit of oil, you can put a little bit of butter if you prefer. I have a tendency to use both because I'll use high heat. Butter burns if it doesn't have a little bit of oil in it, because the oil makes the temperature go a little bit higher. So it really helps incorporate. Excuse me. So once you've got the garlic and anchovies and what I call the poultry herbs, it's mainly thyme, rosemary. Let me think what's else in here. Oh, sage. So those are the basic three things that make up the herbs of Provence, another French term. And you basically just put that in the pan, and it seasons with the sage, rosemary, and thyme to your chicken dish. The tomato will break down when it's in the oven for a couple of hours. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to skin a bulb of garlic, and then I'll show you about anchovies. We'll talk a little bit about anchovies. That's something you should have in your pantry. You should use anchovies, and I don't want you to be scared, because an anchovy is a fish, but it's really a great way to add salt to your dish. And when you add salt to your dish, it always improves the taste. But there's also a little bit of flavor with the oil too. So we'll do the garlic, the oil, and the herbs of Provence, and cook them until they're fragrant, about 30 seconds. And then we'll add the tomato part. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to turn the camera down, show you how to take a simple bulb of garlic and break it down. So on your bulb, you've already taken it out of a big bulb, and you get this little nice clove of garlic. And all you're going to do is take the side of your knife and smash it. And by doing so, what you do is you skin the light paper skin off the garlic. And this is how, wonderful smell, by the way. And all you're doing there is you're taking it and slicing it. See how I'm moving my fingers so I'm not slicing my fingers, and making a minced garlic. And there you have the end, but the paper's gone. The wonderful bulb of garlic is chopped up, ready to go into your sauce. So do that again. Some more garlic. This calls for 4 or 5 bulbs of garlic. So most garlic that you get in the store will come in a big bulb. Anywhere from 8 to 10 are in that. And by pounding the side of the knife, you're crushing the skin, which is just paper thin. It kind of comes off. Then you mince it. Appreciate the wonderful smell. And there's your garlic. Now, here is your anchovies. Anchovies come in they come in 2 ways. They come in a little tin, almost like sardines, or you can get a jar of them. The great thing about anchovies is they break down, and this is anchovy fish. Comes out of a jar, a flat can, but that's that. It breaks down really, really well in the sauce. You don't even have to mince it or slice it, and it adds salt. It adds a little bit of another layer of flavor. This is a chicken dish, but you'll find that it also helps there. Hold on a second. Last thing is for this step is the rosemary, the sage, and the thyme. Those are 4 things that make up your herbs of Providence, which really adds to the dish. It's a wonderful smell. It smells a little bit like Thanksgiving with the sage and rosemary in there, but it's not. So here we go. So we minced the garlic. We've drained off the oil in the anchovies, because the oil in the anchovies is pretty potent. You don't need any extra oil in this dish. The dish has got just enough fat in it. And then you set aside the herbs. And what you want to do is incorporate those right now into your dish. So what we'll do is we'll take the onions and the mushrooms that are almost finished, and then we'll incorporate the garlic that we just sliced. We're going to also put the anchovies and the herbs in there as well. And when you do that, you're only doing it for about 30 seconds before that starts sauteing, and then you add in your tomato product, which I'm going to bring over. So there is your onion and your mushrooms. They've cooked already. All the water's been taken down. That'll make you dizzy. So now we're going to incorporate the garlic. And we're going to incorporate the anchovies. Nice and salty. They're great in a dish like this. They're also great on a Caesar salad. I encourage you to put them in. You don't really need to chop up an anchovy because an anchovy will break down real well. And then the last thing is you take your herbs out, which is this group here, and you put the sage and the rosemary and the thyme into the dish. Just drop it in. You don't need to chop it up. It's all set. So now what we do, we show you what step we're at. The onions and the mushrooms are in there, and the herbs with the anchovies and the garlic. Now what you want to do is you want to start putting in the wine. You want to put the flour and tomato paste in and cook it for a minute. Why do you cook flour? The reason you cook flour is that if you don't, it has a terrible taste to it because it hasn't been cooked. So a simple tablespoon of that. Simple tablespoon 4 of tomato paste. So there's your Hunt's tomato paste. There's your 4 tablespoons of tomato paste. So you got that all going. Let's see. Now you want to put your broth in. Now, usually I would measure this, but I know exactly this is a half a carton of chicken broth that goes in here, and I'll be able to feel that. So I know that we got the chicken broth in. So once that's in, you want to stir it, kind of incorporate all the ingredients in, because this dish definitely wants to be together, and it makes for a wonderful sauce, really a wonderful sauce. Really appreciated that when we made this last time. So after you've done that, you've got your wine, your tomato paste, your flour in. You scraped off the brown bits from the bottom. Now you put your chicken broth in. You want to put in 1 3/4 of chicken broth, about a 1/4 cup of white wine, if you have wine. If you don't need to. Then you want to put in your diced Hunt's tomatoes, another part of the base. Now I use a little bit different. I use Hunt's sliced tomato, but I use it with the one that's got a little bit of basil and oregano, because I always like the wonderful taste. I always have that in my pantry. So what you want to do then is you've got that all set, and then you want to put a couple bay leaves in. Bay leaves always add a great taste. The one thing you got to remember about a bay leaf is you got to take it out before you serve. Bay leaves add a layer of taste, but they're not the best things to have in your dish when you serve it. So there's the bay leaf. Put a couple of those in. It'll add to the taste. Just make a footnote to make sure to remove that when you're done. So you've got all your ingredients in here now, making a nice sauce. And now what you want to do is take the chicken that you've already cooked, make sure the skin's off it. You want to put it in this sauce so that it incorporates in the juice while it sits in the oven. So you'll cover it up. It'll be ready to go. So let me get my chicken. So I remove the skin. You leave the skin on when you're cooking it, but you take it off after this part. The reason you do that is it adds a nice layer of taste to it. So now, if I don't spill it out, you can see how the chicken is sitting in there in the sauce with the herbs, the onions, and mushrooms ready to go. So what you do now is you put the lid on. You let it sit in the oven for the next couple of hours. That lid's on there real good and tight. After it comes out, cooking for a couple hours, then you let it finish. You put in some black olives. Now, this calls for an olive that's difficult to find, so I use black olives instead. But I get these nice large olives, black, slice them up, they're ready to go. You can use green olives if you have those instead. Then after you do the black olives, you want to put in some parsley, which is right here. Just chop up a little parsley. It adds a nice layer of flavor to it. Salt and pepper. And then take your lemon and you want to zest it, and you're all set. All right. So that's how you finish the dish. Serve it with a little bit of rice. Serve it with green beans, Brussels sprouts, asparagus. Makes for a wonderful dish. All right. That is chicken Provincial, a peasant French dish, relatively inexpensive. What's great about this cookbook is you can make this, you can freeze it, and then warm it up the next day. You can cook it, put it in the fridge, save it for a couple of days. So this cookbook recipe is called a make ahead. So chicken Provincial is very easy in a Dutch oven, and you can also do it in an Instapot if you prefer. So that pretty much takes us for chicken Provincial.